Banana slam jam.
Hey guys, welcome back for another video in the new player or mechanics fundamentals tutorials for BSJ, and we're going to now be continuing off of the last video, which talked about the basics of denies and lane equilibrium, and we're now going to approach how to properly maintain lane equilibrium. So we talked about the importance of it in the last video. We're going to go ahead and load up another lobby, start the game, same as always, run it back, and now the entire focus is going to be talking about maintaining lane equilibrium. Little tips for you guys to make sure you do it properly. Any little thing in Dota can ruin lane equilibrium, guys. There's a lot of different ways to ruin it, and a lot of it can only be discovered by simply trying it and observing. So I don't have all the secrets for you guys, but I'm going to run through a quick example of what you need to do. And so we can talk about some core fundamental ideas that kind of guide the lane equilibrium. So first and foremost, I want you guys to realize that what you probably found out testing out the last video is that if you attack the enemy creeps once, and then attack your own creeps once for every time you attack an enemy, that doesn't necessarily keep the lane under control. So the reason why this is first and foremost that range creeps do more damage than melee creeps. So if we look at range creeps, it says 23, and melee creeps do 21. Just trust me here, guys. There's a lot of different types of damage in Dota. It's a little bit confusing, especially for a new player, but range creeps do extra damage to creeps. So range creeps actually deal 35 damage. So this is really important just to know that range creeps do about twice as much damage as melee creeps. So in terms of maintaining lane equilibrium, it's very important that you never leave one of your own range creeps alive. That's like the number one way to get the lane out of control. But if you were to attack an enemy creep once and then attack your own creep once, the reason why that doesn't necessarily balance out is because if you kill an enemy creep first, or vice versa, if they had 4 creeps attacking for 20 seconds, and you had 3 creeps attacking for 20 seconds, and then a 4th creep that died 15 seconds in, then that's 5 seconds of damage that your creep didn't do. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is in order to maintain lane equilibrium, you kind of have to think of it as both sides need to deal just as much damage as the other. And because denies can only be done when your own creeps are underneath half health, it's always best to have the lane slightly going against you rather than being pushed forward. Because the whole idea is you're going to be walking on a tightrope. If you want the lane to stay where it is, every time that it's slightly going towards the opponent or it's slightly going towards you, you need to right the ship immediately. Otherwise, it's going to get out of control really fast. So, we're going to show you exactly what we're talking about. We moved on from the last video, and we talked about getting denies and what the importance of them are. For this video, I don't want you to necessarily focus on getting denies. I want you to focus on getting as many last hits as you can while also maintaining lane equilibrium. That's the most important part. You may doubt my stress of importance on this subject now, but trust me, eventually, if you do get into Dota at a decent level, you will be very grateful that you learned lane equilibrium this early on. So, we're going to attack our own creep once just to ensure lane equilibrium. You can attack them as soon as they get below half. So I'll always favor prioritizing my own creeps over the enemy creeps when I can. So this is a good little check mark for you guys. Every creep wave is going to be kind of rinse and repeat. So what you can do is, at any given moment, really get in the habit of noticing which lane, if the lane's pushing towards you or pushing away from you. Really, the easiest way to do it is if you just add up the health bars of both sides. So if we look at this, both sides have a range creep at full HP, and then my side has a melee creep at a little less than half, and their side has a melee creep at a little more than half. So what that means for me is that the lane is pushing into me. So this is something that if you can learn to keep in check at all times, like in the back of your mind, like, oh, it's slightly pushing into me, slightly pushing out, and if you can keep track of this, it'll be autopilot for when you actually get into Dota games. And it's something that every high-level player does every single game, And if we can get you doing it now, that'd be absolutely fantastic. So, just taking note. We don't necessarily have to do anything about it. We just want to take note and be observing that it is doing this. So every time one of your own creeps dies, like right there, you just saw my own creep die, a really good habit that I showed a little bit of in the last video is to go ahead and back your hero up behind any creeps on your side. So in this case, I have an ally creep here. I'm now going to back my hero up further than this creep to ensure that these two creeps now attack this guy. Notice how I back off, and what happens is you just saw the tower start attacking. So, if you're going to be trying to keep the lane as close to your tower as possible, what's going to inevitably happen sometimes is that the enemy creeps are going to be within the attack range of your tower. So we're going to quickly show you a setting, just in case you don't have it checked. We're going to pull up the options, and if you hold Alt, it shows tower attack range. That's the setting we're talking about right now. So if you want a good idea of how far the towers attack, we're going to unpause, you push Alt, and you see this nice little green circle, bringing me to my next habit that I need you guys to try to work on as much as possible. Feel free, if you are not sure if a creep is going to be within a tower attack range, to push Alt. This is an amazing habit to get into. So what you can really get a feel for, no matter which lane you end up playing in the future, we'll talk about all these other lanes when we get there, is that you can get an idea of exactly where this tower range is. Dota is all about feel. It's all about recognizing patterns. It's all about getting an idea in the back of your mind of where these things that I'm bringing to your attention are all happening. So we're going to take note that the tower range is about right here. Any high-level Dota player will know exactly where that is. And anytime we're worried about a creep going into it, we can just push Alt, and there's going to be a nice red laser beam coming out from the tower if it's ever attacking. I'll show that in just a second. So you have 30 seconds between every creep wave. Creep wave spawn at the 0-minute mark, and then 30 seconds afterwards. So now we find ourselves on the second creep wave. One of the best habits to get into when it comes to lane equilibrium is you want the lane to start fresh. Every single creep wave. You want that 30 seconds to be a nice little reset button where if you're doing it perfectly, the lane looks exactly like it did the first time these creeps met. Act like nothing ever happened. So notice here, we look at the creep wave. We do this little status check. This is another thing to get in the habit of. Amazing to do this in practice, and it may take you guys maybe 25 to 50 attempts to get past this video. But if you guys can draw all this down, it's going to be absolutely fantastic, as I have said multiple times. So we look at the creep wave right here. The new creep waves have come to us. Feel free to pause to give yourself a little bit of a practice. A lot of Dota is all about triggers and things that should alert you that you kind of need to check in the back of your mind. Check that box off. So the creeps have met. We can take a quick pause and say, oh, looks like we have an extra range creep that's alive. And otherwise, everything's normal. So let's go ahead and kill that. And then we'll pause again. Now we're back to where we started. Creep wave 1. Perfect. Rinse and repeat. Attack this one a little bit. And we're just trying to get every last hit as well. Don't worry too much about denies. But I'm waiting for this. Never attack an enemy creep forward unless the lane is pushing really hard into you guys. Just take that as a note for now. We'll talk about that more in future videos. Notice how I back off again. I can see this little red laser beam coming out from the tower. And here we go. This is exactly what it should look like for you. Notice how it's in tower range. So what we did here was mess up a little bit by letting the creep wave come a little bit too close to the tower. So that's going to ruin everything for us. This is one of many ways that you can ruin the lane for yourself. Meaning that now look at what's happening to the lane. So we're going to show briefly what you guys can try to get better at by trying to fix it. Now, we're just going to try auto attack denying as much as we possibly can. Auto attack just means we're not waiting until like a specific time. We're just killing our own creeps as fast as possible. So, not the complete end of the world, but not good. Notice how new creep waves have met, and it is actually pushing pretty heavily into the opponent's side because there's one creep on their side with no HP, while all of ours are absolutely full health. So, now we're going to have to attack one of our own guys as soon as possible. If this were the opposite, we could just attack any enemy creep at any time. But since we have to wait for our own guys to get below half, we can't do anything to fix this right now. And that's why it's much easier to fix the lane if it's pushing towards you than it is if it's going away from you. So notice how we're trying to fix this as fast as we can. And we put a lot of effort into fixing this. Most of our attacks have been getting the lane, attacking our own guys. And notice how if you compare this one to the last one, we improved a little bit. Last time, this guy was sitting at like 1/5 HP. And now he's sitting at a little less than half. And so your goal is to prevent it getting out of control. If you can keep the lane right here, you have played absolutely flawlessly. Once the lane go past this area right here, you have lost. Call this little mini game that BSJ has set up. You have lost once the lane goes here, and you should reload this and try again. The goal is to be able to hold this for 5 minutes. All of this stuff matters when you have opponents, and I assure you guys, if you can't do it when you don't have opponents, you will not be able to do it when you do. Notice how that guy attacked me. I went behind my own guy, and he stopped attacking me. We're still trying to fix this as fast as we can. And now, that guy was only at like 3/4 HP. So we can issue an attack here. We're actually fixing it. We're right in the ship here, guys. And this is exactly what you should be able to do when you have no opponents. For me, I've been getting every last hit while doing so. In this video, I want you to prioritize the lane equilibrium over anything else. But the goal is, as you get better and better, that you'll get more and more last hits. And there's really no fancy magic formula that you guys can do here. Just practice, getting a feel for the timing of things, getting a feel for what things can make the lane go wrong, and also just making sure you focus on all the things I told you to focus on, and slowly but surely memory banking one at a time. So as a reminder, new creep waves have showed up, we have paused, and we noticed that the enemy actually has 2 range creeps, while we have a normal creep wave. Notice how we have 4 green dudes, and they have 5 red dudes. So, not only is it important to recognize that they have more creeps, but we have to notice what type of creep they have more of. So sometimes the enemy will have 4 melee creeps instead of 3 melee creeps. But in this case, they have 2 range creeps instead of 1 range creep. So what we're going to do to fix the lane to go back to normal is go attack a range creep. So that's what we're going to do, but we're not going to be missing any creeps. Going to walk back and hit that. Then we're going to walk back because this guy's attacking us. All rinse and repeat habitual stuff. And now the lane is pushing out a little bit since we attacked a little bit too much. We missed a creep there. But after all is said and done, all that chaos, this is much harder than it looks if you are very new to the game. Just saying. We have come back to a spot where the lane is completely normal once we kill this. Notice how it's even better that it's slightly pushing against us. And that is exactly the goal of this video. If you can do this for 5 minutes, you have passed and you are welcome to move on to the next one. Ideally, by 5 minutes, you want to be able to get at least 80% of the creeps. So if you want to go for like 6 minutes, 4 creeps every creep wave, 2 creep waves a minute, that's 8 creeps. So we want to be able to get at least 32 of these creeps by the 5-minute mark. Notice how it's pushing into me, so I'm just attacking a little bit extra to try to balance it out. Now it's going to push into my tower. We'll show the little red laser beam. And perfect. We have reached 5 minutes, and the lane is exactly where we started. Little bumps along the road, but it's all about awareness of what these things are doing. Is there more enemy creeps? Are there more allied creeps? And as long as we keep fixing it one way or the other, we'll stay exactly where we want to be. There's going to be a little bumps, like we said. Sometimes it went all the way out here. Sometimes it went into my tower, so it went back here. But the goal is that as long as we work effortlessly to fix it, whatever direction it is, we will be able to maintain lane equilibrium. This is what a lot of Dota players, a lot of seasoned Dota players would consider a very advanced mechanic. But I believe is essential for a new player to understand, because a lot of people don't exactly know what they're supposed to do with all of these creep waves. So, once you've done this, we can move on to the next one, and I look forward to seeing you guys there.